from a combat medic in the German army to a doctorate in cardiothoracic vascular surgery, Vietnam-born Philip Rossler shifted gears to move into politics. Having joined the political youth organization of Germany's Free Democratic Party, Rossler rose the ranks to serve as group chairman and the Minister of Economics, Labour and Transport of the state of Lower Saxony until he was overwhelmingly elected to lead Germany's Free Democrats in 2011. Rossler succeeded Rainer Brunel as Federal Minister of Economics and Technology and also took over the role of Vice-Chancellor, the official number 2 in Chancellor Angela Merkel's government. That same year, Rossler attended the state dinner hosted by US President Barack Obama in honor of Chancellor Angela Merkel at the White House. With the defeat of the Free Democratic Party in the 2013 state elections in Lower Saxony, Rossler stepped down as a chairman. In 2014, Philip Rossler became member of the managing board of the World Economic Forum in Switzerland. The story of Philip Rossler in German politics is inspiring. At the age of 40 years, Rossler was the Vice-Chancellor of Germany as well as its economics minister and the leader of the Free Democrats. He was the first cabinet minister of Asian background in Germany.
Good evening and welcome. This is Newsfirst in Focus. Where is the world heading in terms of the economy? Where is the EU heading after the Brexit vote? Where is Sri Lanka heading in terms of the country's future as far as the economy is concerned? I have with me a very interesting guest. He was a former cabinet minister, the first ever immigrant to be appointed as a cabinet minister in the German government. He is now the managing director of the World Economic Forum. Let me welcome Philip Rossler. A very good evening to you and welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you.
Right at the start, Philip, tell us a little bit about what the World Economic Forum does. We know for a fact that every year in January you all meet, you all have the biggest forum in the world in terms of the world's economy. What exactly do you all do apart from this area of expertise?
So the World Economic Forum is since 2 years an international organization for public-private cooperation. And that means that we are convinced that all the global challenges such as climate change, global trade, gender, can only be addressed in a public-private mindset. Neither the public sector nor the private sector alone can address the challenges. You need always both. You need this public-private mindset. And we ourselves offer this kind of platform in Davos, on regional levels, for all the different stakeholders, politicians, business leaders, academia, the youth, civil society, to come together, to discuss, and then to come, and that's important, to collaborative action to address the entire issues.
When it comes to the World Economic Forum, we see a lot of personalities like world leaders coming together for a common cause. Does it in any way assist the world's economy to be improved to a better level, to take it to the next level? Does world leaders think about a multilateral engagement at the World Economic Forum, or is it a very bilateral engagement that is taking place at the forum?
Hopefully it's both. Of course, there's a strong part for bilateral discussions. At the same time, they have all these global citizenship in mind. And only one example, we do not want to address one single vertical industry such as robotics or 3D printing. No, we say, look, what about the future of production system? That means we would like to address the entire ecosystem. And we need not only discussion about the technology, but the impact of society as well. What does, for example, robotics for the future of jobs? What does it mean for the people on the ground?
When it comes to the last couple of weeks, it was quite interesting because of the Brexit vote. Britain deciding that they don't want to be a part of the European Union. Post-Brexit, how do you think the European Union will adopt without the United Kingdom? Will they be able to adapt to that change in the future? How do you say this as the managing director of the World Economic Forum?
Of course, so they will survive and they will improve because they have now really the challenge, and they're realizing that this is a challenge, to make inside the European Union reforms in terms of governance, in terms of rules, in terms of thinking and European mindset. At the same time, of course, they have now to negotiate with the UK, with Great Britain, the next relation, and what does it mean for trade, for the single market, and so forth. But it's an opportunity to come to reforms inside the EU.
As I said before, you were part of the German cabinet as well. You were the federal minister for economies as well as technology. How will this affect economies like in Germany, Brexit? How is it going to affect in the long run?
So UK is around 20% of our European Union GDP. So now we will lose 20% more or less. And the future and the impact on our European economy will be defined by the outcome of the incoming negotiations. How close can we keep the UK to the single market? What level of access will they have? So that will define our trade relations and our supply chain. So it's still open. So there is an opportunity that we can remain to some extent and keep the strong economy UK. But even if not, so we have to reach out to other regions. So we have to look into our future as a European Union now. And this is always at the same time with the negotiations.
The European Union very clearly articulated when the European Parliament met that either Britain is in or either Britain is out. Now the Britain as a nation is out of the European Union. The next 2 years is going to be very crucial. But having said what you said right now, saying that you're still trying to ensure that you all want to move towards Britain and see the way of increasing this engagement, how feasible is this going to be with a mindset of this nature? Either you're in or either you're out.
So they decided to go out. And indeed, from both sides, it's clear there is no cherry picking. So if you're out, so you're really out of the single market. And everything you can negotiate will be only the second best in comparison to being really part of the single market. And as a consequence, the UK has to reach out beyond the single market of the EU, means they should try to foster the relationship inside the Commonwealth, for example. And that's a great opportunity. We should not underrate and underestimate the Commonwealth. We are talking about 53 different nations. Why not using this historic, grown and built relationship, using for some global trade from their end? And that could be, by the way, a great opportunity for Sri Lanka.
How do you think Brexit will affect smaller countries like Sri Lanka in the long run?
So I am convinced that they will now reach out after they have to step out of the single market. So there's the new trading partners or stronger relationship to existing trading partners. And as a consequence, we see maybe some foreign direct investment here in Sri Lanka, not only into economy, but as well as in science, technology, university and knowledge. So they have to rethink the entire global relationship, and that is more an opportunity than a risk for countries such as Sri Lanka.
When it comes to the way forward, how much must the Sri Lankan economy, the Sri Lankan government really focus on subcontinent nations like China, like India? Do you think it's happening right now?
So in my humble opinion, they are on a good way. So they are negotiating the free trade agreements, the different types with China, of course Singapore, as well as India. So that is a great opportunity, but at the same time, it could be challenging because if you have open borders and free trade agreements, you're more challenged in terms of your own competitiveness. So it's not only to negotiate these free trade agreements, at the same time to have to improve your competitiveness, to bet on technology, to foster and to strengthen your power into education, job skills and training, for example.
The general notion is that, Philip, is the fact that wherever there is the International Monetary Fund, the country's economy is in a very bad state. Sri Lanka right now is on an extended facility by the International Monetary Fund. Do you think that the IMF is interfering into the policy direction of the present regime?
I would not see that negative, more the other way around. I think it's a good signal and symbol that the IMF is now involved here in Sri Lanka. Why? Because foreign direct investment is first and foremost a question of trust. And having the IMF on board is always a good way into more trust by the foreign direct investors, because they are a guarantee for good governance, for sound fiscal policy, for the right economic reforms. Yes, it will be maybe tough, but at the end, it's a good signal, a good sign, and very encouraging for foreign direct investors to see the IMF sustainable engaged here in Sri Lanka.
The impact of the intrusion made by International Monetary Fund, let's talk about FDI. You said it's a very good thing. However, the Sri Lankan people are right now feeling it because of the simple fact that the IMF extended facility very clearly states, very clearly articulates that the tax regime has to change. As a result of that, we see increasing amounts of taxes being slapped on essential goods in Sri Lanka. So there is somewhat a negative aspect as well as far as the IMF is concerned, isn't it?
The first, again, the purpose of the IMF is not to squeeze anyone, but to push forward some necessary economic reforms. And that means to have sound fiscal policy, means to have the right budget balance between income and expenditures. And of course that means maybe to shrink the budget, and it must again be balanced with the income. I think that is crucial, and of course it's at the beginning particularly painful. The second is to push forward reforms. And one of the reforms which are critical and crucial for foreign direct investor is of course the tax system. It's not only the question of the interest rate in itself, but how simple is a tax system? How logic, if you can talk about logic, if we talk about the tax system, but that is the main purpose of the IMF. So again, at the end, it will be good for the people on the ground, for the people in Sri Lanka, but I have to admit that at the beginning it will be tough for the government as well as for the people, but I think the way is the right decision Sri Lanka has chosen.
Philip, over the last few years, the IMF has been quite significantly making contributions to Sri Lankan economy. But never has it been able to diagnose the problem and address the problem at hand. It has always been a case where money has been flowing into the country as an extended fund facility, as a standby arrangement, so on and so forth. It seems that the IMF is not the medicine that is required for the diagnosis in a country like Sri Lanka. What are your thoughts on this?
No, it's not the money, and we should not focus too much on the money because you're right. So that's only for one moment. But if you will not have any reform, it will not change anything. So you should see always both, the reforms as well as the money. And if you can make, at the same time you get the money, the necessary reforms, then, but only then, you're on a good way. And that is a signal, that is a message, that you should not only take the money from the IMF, but as well the advice for the necessary reforms.
Philip, Sri Lanka's new government came into power with the promise of restoring democracy and good governance, transparency as well as accountability. As a politician and a former minister, how do you see this transition that took place on the 8th of January 2015?
So as a politician, I know that people are always, for good reasons, impatient. So, but if you know how society are running and politics is going on, I think even this government is quite successful. Of course, we always would like to wish it that it would be much faster, but if you understand the political mechanism, I think they're on the right track. And look, for example, the terms of reforms we just discussed. Look at digitization. The government, the minister is quite engaged on a global level, discussing with so many different stakeholders, and really to attract investments, but push forward the agenda of modernization of Sri Lanka through digitization.
How will the government's commitment to good governance, transparency, accountability and reconciliation impact the overall economy and foreign direct investments?
So if they can succeed, then again they will create some kind of trust. And what I just mentioned before, trust is critical and crucial for foreign direct investment. If the investors have the feeling that they really could trust into the economy, into the leadership, into the government, so then I think they will come with their investment. And again, that is the best way to push your country forward.
Philip, the general notion now in Sri Lanka is the fact that despite there was change on the 8th of January, despite there was change on the 17th of August last year following a general election, the government's pace on the economic front is very, very slow. It is not going on an accelerated pace. Is this normal?
To some extent it's normal, because first you have to invest, and that means not money, but invest into reforms, into reaching out to other countries, again, in order to create trust around the country, different politicians, but as well as, of course, business leaders for this question of foreign direct investment. So that needs time. And we're talking about 1 or 1.5 years. And so if we see then the benefit, the turnout, the positive turnout, that lasts a couple of years. So but as far as we can see, I think, again, this government is on the right track.
Sri Lanka is currently pursuing trade deals with countries like Singapore, China, India, and is looking at diversifying exports and scout for trade opportunities with the ASEAN region, ASEAN countries. Do you see this as the way forward for a country like Sri Lanka? Can we really build this relationship and move forward?
Of course, so free trade agreements are crucial. But at the same time, in order to use this for the benefit of your people, you must have reforms in order to improve your competitiveness, so that you have not only open borders in terms of free trade, but that you can use these open borders for selling your own products because of your own productivity. So that's the idea. And so we know that the government is working on both the free trade agreements, but at the same time to improve competitiveness.
Let's talk a little bit about you, Philip. You were an immigrant from Vietnam, going to Germany and being able to secure a post of a federal minister, Minister of Economies as well as Technologies. How did you do it?
I think, so that's more a question of a political approach from my party, from the situation, and not the question of being an immigrant. But one thing is pretty clear, that if you would like to work hard as a young man or young woman, you can achieve a lot. And that's my message to the youth of Sri Lanka as well, to the young global leaders, global shapers we have here, so to encourage them to be engaged. As long as you're engaged, you can achieve a lot.
As far as technology is concerned, how important is it to embrace technology to move forward for a country like Sri Lanka?
So we are convinced at World Economic Forum that we are living in the era of the fourth industrial revolution. That means technology means humanity, and at the end, so all the different economic sectors in industry will refer and will be dependent on the improvement on the fourth industrial revolution front. So I can only encourage everyone to bet on this, to focus on the fourth industrial revolution, to use technology to improve productivity, efficiency, but not to forget the people, because it is an industrial revolution, because it's not only technological development, but as well society impact.
Where would you put your money? The West, Asia, or Asia Pacific region? Where would you put your money?
As a World Economic Forum, we try to bring in global relationship, not to focus on one single region, but to connect the different regions in order to shape the different regional agendas. And what we see now in South Asia is very encouraging.
My final question to you is, Philip, very simple. As a politician, now as the Managing Director of World Economic Forum, how was this transition for you?
So it's an amazing step, and it's very fulfilling now, because as a politician, you have to make some decisions, of course. But it's always very abstract. Here at the forum, you can have quite concrete impact. For example, we have a new vision for agriculture in Asia, and we can train literally smallholder farmers, millions of smallholder farmers, in order to have sustainable agriculture, increasing productivity, increasing efficiency, and again, that's very fulfilling.
Thank you very much, Phil, for joining us this evening on Newsfirst in Focus. Pleasure to have you on board.